Have you ever felt like something invisible is guiding your choices? Like fear, guilt, or doubt is silently steering your life? What if I told you the parts of yourself you've spent years avoiding are the very keys to your power? Today, we're stepping into the realm of the shadow, a concept introduced by Carl Jung, one of the most profound thinkers of the modern age. Jung believed that within every one of us lies a hidden side made up of everything we've rejected, denied, or feared. He wrote, "The less the shadow is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is." In other words, the more we ignore our shadow, the more control it exerts over us, silently shaping our emotions, our decisions, even our relationships. When we bury parts of ourselves, they don't disappear, they fester. And often, without realizing it, we start blaming others for the very things we haven't accepted in ourselves. This is what Jung called projection, when our unacknowledged pain becomes a mirror, casting itself onto those around us. It's why we feel stuck, disconnected, out of sync with who we really are, but this isn't the end of the story. It's just the beginning. Stay with me, because by the end of this journey, you'll understand how to transform what's been silently holding you back into the very force that sets you free. Recognizing your shadow is the first brave step toward real transformation. It means daring to look inward, not just at the parts you're proud of, but also at the parts you've hidden in shame. And what if I told you that the very traits you've spent your life suppressing, your anger, your need for approval, your fears, might actually hold the raw material of your greatest strength? Jung believed that your shadow isn't a flaw, it's potential, untapped, misunderstood, waiting. From childhood, we're taught what's acceptable, what emotions to show, what behaviors to hide. Over time, we learn to silence parts of ourselves just to belong. This forms what Jung called the personal shadow, a hidden vault of feelings and traits we've labeled wrong or unacceptable. Take the child constantly told not to show anger. That emotion doesn't vanish, it sinks. And in adulthood, it can resurface as passive aggression, people-pleasing, or an inability to say no. But here's the surprising truth: that buried anger, it might contain the seed of healthy assertiveness, the ability to stand tall, set boundaries, and protect what matters. The shadow doesn't just contain darkness, it holds light, misplaced, forgotten light. Jung also spoke of the collective shadow, the dark underside of entire cultures. Societies that worship strength may suppress tenderness. Communities that prize productivity may demonize rest. These collective blind spots shape how we see ourselves and how we shame others. Every day, the personal and collective shadow moves through us. It whispers when we feel jealous of someone's freedom or angry at someone's vulnerability. It acts out in relationships, decisions, even politics, when we reject in others what we've silenced in ourselves. But here's the good news. When you turn toward the shadow, you don't lose yourself. You reclaim yourself. You become whole. Emotional triggers are like clues, that sudden spike of irritation or envy. It's not random. It's a flare sent from your shadow, pointing to something within you that longs to be seen. You might admire someone's confidence, yet secretly feel resentment. Why? Because your own confidence has been locked away, conditioned out of you. These moments are not threats, they're invitations. And if you're willing to accept them, they will guide you to your deepest power. Jung taught that the shadow holds not only repressed fears, but also instinct, intuition, and brilliance. It's the artist within the accountant, the protector behind the passive, the truth-teller hiding in the people-pleaser. By embracing your shadow, you unlock hidden gifts. You begin to live not as someone performing for the world, but as someone whole, grounded, and real. Think about this. Have you ever disliked someone instantly and you didn't know why? Jung called this psychological projection. He said, we still attribute to the other fellow all the evil and inferior qualities we do not like to recognize in ourselves. When we don't own our shadow, we hand it to others. We see our shame in their choices, our denied desires in their freedom. This creates conflict, not because of who they are, but because of what we refuse to face within. We project traits and feelings onto others, not because we're malicious, but because we're trying to escape something inside us. Projection is a shield, a subtle defense, It lets us push away the parts of ourselves that feel too raw, too uncomfortable, too real. So instead of facing them, we see them in others. Have you ever been deeply irritated by someone's arrogance? Perhaps a colleague who seemed too proud, too full of themselves. You may have judged them, labeled them. But here's the twist. That intense reaction might not be about them at all. Maybe it's a reflection of your own unacknowledged hunger for recognition, your buried longing to be seen. This is the power of the shadow. It speaks in mirrors. That co-worker's arrogance might echo your silenced desire to succeed, to stand out, to matter. And in that discomfort, there's a message waiting to be heard. Start paying attention to your emotional reactions, especially the strong ones. Frustration, envy, judgment. They aren't random. They're signposts, gently pointing inward. They whisper, there's something here you haven't made peace with. And if you pause instead of react, if you ask, what does this moment reveal about me? You begin to reclaim your power. This shift changes everything. Suddenly, relationships aren't just a battlefield of reactions. They become mirrors for healing. You stop seeing enemies and start seeing reflections. Of course, this work takes time. It takes honesty. And yes, it takes courage. Think about the last time someone, your partner, a friend, a parent, really got under your skin. Instead of snapping back or shutting down, ask yourself, what part of me is being touched here? That one question can open a doorway you've kept locked for years. By exploring your projections, you don't just grow as an individual. You deepen your connections with those closest to you. And remember, not all projections are negative. Sometimes what you admire in others, someone's brilliance, courage, creativity, isn't just admiration, it's recognition. It's your soul whispering, you have this too. But maybe you buried it, because the world told you it wasn't safe, or acceptable, or possible. These hidden gifts are part of your shadow too, waiting patiently to be embraced. Working with your shadow is not a one-time revelation, it's a slow, sacred unfolding. As Carl Jung said, only the man who goes through his darkness can hope to make any progress. This is not a journey for the faint-hearted, but the rewards are profound, because when you stop running, when you turn and face the forgotten pieces of your soul, you discover something miraculous. That what you once called flaws are actually the roots of your highest potential. What if your darkest traits, the ones you've spent years hiding, aren't your weakness? What if they're the very keys to your growth? Jung believed the shadow doesn't only contain shame, guilt, and pain, it also holds brilliance, fire, and power. Things like assertiveness, confidence, creativity. We've simply been taught to fear them, to lock them away. But locked doors don't make the contents disappear. They just keep us from accessing our own strength. Take assertiveness. In many cultures, especially for women, it's been painted as pushy, aggressive, unkind. So it gets pushed into the shadow. But when you bring it back into the light, it transforms. It becomes the courage to say no, the strength to set boundaries, the clarity to pursue your truth. Or think about creativity. Maybe life told you that art isn't practical, that dreaming is foolish. So you buried your imagination. But deep within, that spark still glows, waiting. When you embrace your creativity, you unlock more than expression. You unlock vitality, vision, a sense of aliveness that no job title can replace. Jung called this process psychological wholeness, not perfection, but integration. Because real growth doesn't come from silencing your inner world. It comes from welcoming every part of it. The goal isn't to be flawless. It's to be whole, human, fully alive. But make no mistake, this work is not easy. As Jung said, the shadow is a moral problem that challenges the whole ego. You'll be asked to confront things you've buried for years, to admit truths you once ran from, to hold your own contradictions with compassion. It takes honesty, it takes patience, but it also brings resilience, the kind that isn't shaken by storms, and strength, the kind rooted in authenticity, not performance. When you walk with your whole self, you stop pretending. You start living. So where do you begin? Start with someone you admire, or even envy. What qualities in them spark something in you? Bravery, elegance, passion. Now ask, could this be something I've denied in myself? Chances are the answer is yes. These are the seeds of your positive shadow, the parts of you that long to grow. And each time you're emotionally triggered, whether with awe or irritation, pause. What's this moment trying to teach me about myself? The goal isn't to eliminate the shadow, it's to befriend it. Because your shadow holds power, vision, strength. When it's acknowledged, it no longer controls you from the dark. It partners with you in the light. This work leads to emotional balance, to deeper self-respect, to richer, more conscious living. You don't become someone else, you become more you. But let's not sugarcoat it. Shadow work is uncomfortable. It asks you to sit with your fear, your anger, your deepest insecurities. That's why so many people turn away. They stop when it stings. But what if the discomfort is sacred? What if it's the very threshold between who you've been and who you're meant to become? Carl Jung reminded us, becoming conscious of the shadow requires considerable moral effort. Because the shadow doesn't knock gently, it forces you to look at yourself with radical honesty. And at first, your mind resists. Of course it does. That's natural. But that resistance, that's the doorway. It means you're touching something important, something ready to heal, ready to rise. Shadow work is both an act of bravery and an act of love. A love that says, even the parts of me I once feared deserve to come home, parts of yourself that are uncomfortable, the ones you've hidden, denied, or buried beneath a carefully constructed image. They're not mistakes, they're not flaws, they are echoes of your truth. Maybe they contradict the person you think you should be, or the version of yourself that feels safe in the world's eyes. But healing begins not by rejecting these parts, but by meeting them with compassion. Not with judgment, not with shame, but with soft curiosity. In the beginning, strong emotions may surface: guilt, shame, anger. Let them. Don't run. These are not barriers. They are signposts, signals from your soul, pointing you toward the places that still ache for attention. Don't silence them. Listen. This is where emotional resilience becomes essential. Shadow work asks that you sit, really sit, with discomfort, that you stay with it long enough to hear what it's been trying to tell you. You don't have to be fearless, you just need to be present. Mindfulness becomes your anchor. Like standing on the shore, watching waves rise and fall, you begin to realize emotions don't drown you. You drown when you fight them. Let them move, let them breathe. Observe them like clouds drifting through a vast sky. And most importantly, let go of judgment. The traits you've hidden are often the ones society taught you to fear or reject. But what if, just what if, those pieces are the very keys to your wholeness? Try meeting those parts with curiosity instead of condemnation. Try asking, why did I bury this part of me? Who taught me it was wrong? And as you do, something extraordinary begins to unfold. You don't just understand yourself, you begin to integrate. You become more whole. But know this: shadow work is not a one-time revelation. It's a rhythm, a ritual, an unfolding. As Carl Jung said, it's a long negotiation, a dialogue with the unconscious that never truly ends. Just when you think you've reached the core, another layer reveals itself, and that's okay. This is not about rushing, it's about reverence. If you're just beginning, don't dive straight into the depths. Start small, start gentle. Begin with the everyday irritations, the judgments, the annoyances, the triggers. These small emotional stings are golden threads. Follow them, and they'll lead you to hidden places inside yourself. As you grow more comfortable with the process, the deeper shadows will start to feel less threatening. You'll start to understand them not as enemies, but as lost children. Fragments of you asking to be held, not feared. Journaling can become a sanctuary in this journey, a sacred space where the unspoken can finally speak. You don't need the perfect words, you don't need structure. Just a pen and honesty. Write what feels raw, write what scares you, and over time patterns will emerge, themes, symbols, familiar wounds. You'll start to see the architecture of your unconscious. And if the journey feels too overwhelming, know this: you don't have to walk it alone. A mentor, a therapist, a wise guide can hold up a mirror when you can't see yourself clearly. They can help you see what hides in your blind spots. What if I told you a pen and paper could change your life? Not with magic, but with presence. You don't need elaborate rituals. You don't need endless therapy. Just a few moments each day of stillness, of truth-telling. Carl Jung believed that transformation isn't about understanding something once. It's about living it, engaging with it. And one of the most accessible tools for this is journaling. When you write, you create a container, a safe, sacred place for the parts of you that have never had a voice. Shadow journaling isn't about grammar. It isn't about being eloquent. It's about being real. Let the words come out messy. Let them come out raw. This uncensored flow allows you to catch glimpses of what lives underneath your polished mask. What made you angry today? What stirred sadness, jealousy, fear? Ask yourself, what exactly triggered me? Why did I react this way? What was I protecting? What exactly triggered me? Why did I react this way? What was I protecting? Through these questions, you uncover the stories you've been living unconsciously, and you begin to rewrite them with tenderness. Mindfulness walks hand in hand with journaling. It teaches you to pause, to feel without flinching, to observe without collapsing. Try it. Just a few times a day, stop and check in. How am I feeling? Where is that feeling in my body? What thought is trying to take over? And then breathe. With time, you'll notice when you're projecting your pain onto others, when you're ignoring your needs, when your past is trying to script your present. Awareness, then reflection, becomes your compass. Self-reflection is a mirror. When someone irritates or disappoints you, instead of pointing the finger, turn inward. Ask, what am I seeing in them that I've denied in myself? Sometimes the world isn't pushing your buttons, it's pushing your awareness. Jung reminds us, the shadow isn't something to destroy, it's something to befriend. You're not trying to banish these parts, you're trying to understand them, integrate them, and in doing so, reclaim your full self. So here's a simple daily practice, nothing elaborate, just devotion. In the morning, begin with 3 minutes of stillness. Breathe. Observe your emotions, let them greet you like old friends. During the day, pause whenever a strong emotion rises. Be curious, not reactive. And at night, journal, freely, honestly. What moved you today? What stung? What patterns emerged? And if you meet resistance, good. That resistance is sacred. It means you're getting close. It means the shadow is speaking. And if you can sit with that discomfort, even for a moment, you are already healing. Remember, it takes profound courage to face your shadow. Not all battles are loud. Some are quiet, internal, and deeply personal. Every small step you take into the dark is a silent triumph, a quiet revolution towards self-awareness. But why is it that certain stories passed down through generations echo in the chambers of our soul? Why do myths, fables, and ancient legends feel more like mirrors than mere tales? It's because they speak to something primal. They awaken what we've tried to bury. These stories reflect the very essence of the human experience, what Jung called the shadow. Take the haunting tale of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson. It's not just a horror story, it's a psychological parable. Dr. Jekyll, in his noble pursuit of purity, creates a potion to separate his good from his bad. But what emerges, Mr. Hyde, is not just evil. He is raw, impulsive, untamed. The parts Dr. Jekyll couldn't face became the parts that consumed him. And that is the warning. When we repress our darkness, it grows in power. Ignored, it festers. To find peace, we must integrate, not eliminate, the parts of ourselves that frighten us. The story is so powerful because it doesn't just entertain, it confronts a universal truth, the battle within. Dr. Jekyll's downfall wasn't in having a shadow, it was in denying it. His failure teaches us that light without shadow is incomplete. To become whole, we must embrace the full spectrum of our being. Myths and legends from every culture echo this same truth. Consider the trickster figures, Loki in Norse myth or Coyote in Native American lore. They deceive, they disrupt, they break the rules. We scorn them. Yet they are essential. Tricksters are catalysts for transformation. They embody the chaos within us, the urges we deny, the unpredictability we fear. But without them, there is no growth, no change, no awakening. These characters persist because they reach into the depths of us. They illuminate what we would rather not see. When we watch a trickster create chaos or a villain spiral into obsession, something stirs. It's not just entertainment, it's recognition. We know that hunger, that envy, that rage. And when we confront those reflections through myth, we begin to heal. Myths are not just stories, they are psychological roadmaps. They guide us through the darkest forests of the self and point us to the treasures hidden within. Many of the heroes we admire only find their strength after facing their shadow. They descend into the underworld, they meet their demons, and in doing so they rise, not as the same person, but as someone transformed. Jung believed that within the shadow lies not just darkness, but gold. Buried beneath the guilt and shame are positive traits we've rejected: creativity, intuition, emotional depth. And by engaging with these myths consciously, we begin the work of reclaiming those gifts. We step into integration, into authenticity. You can begin this work by noticing which stories move you, deeply, unexpectedly. If a particular character haunts you, ask why. What do they represent? What do they awaken in you? That discomfort is not random, it is revelation. Shadow work through story is a sacred path, and sometimes the key to understanding yourself is hidden in the motives of the villain. Try shifting your perspective. Stand in their shoes. What wounds drove them? What fear twisted them? In doing so, you cultivate empathy for them and for yourself. The journey into story becomes a journey into self. Through myths, you don't just find knowledge, you find transformation. And this inner transformation begins to ripple outward. Jung believed that the shadow isn't only personal, it's also collective. It's the hidden wounds of a society, the darkness we all pretend not to see: prejudice, injustice, violence. When we ignore these shadows on a societal level, they erupt, in division, in cruelty, in the silent suffering of those whose voices are unheard. And the danger lies in our justifications. When we do harm in the name of good, we betray the soul of humanity. To truly evolve, individually and collectively, we must look into these shadows, not to judge, but to understand. At moral, political, and spiritual levels, the work must be done. Jung believed the healing of society begins with the healing of the individual. When you understand your own shadow, you begin to recognize how it feeds into the world's wounds. You begin to question the stories you've inherited, the systems you uphold. You start to see how deeply personal growth and social healing are intertwined. A person who has walked through the fire of their own prejudice becomes the kind of person who notices injustice, who speaks out when others stay silent, who disrupts harm in their workplace, their community, their family. This is the ripple effect of inner work. But let's be clear, facing the collective shadow is not for the faint of heart. It means sitting in discomfort. It means being willing to say, "I was wrong." It means unlearning, apologizing, repairing. It demands courage, not just to see clearly, but to act with integrity. Jung once said, "The world is still full of scapegoats." We project what we won't face in ourselves onto others. We blame to avoid shame. But when we own our flaws, we stop needing someone else to carry them. Healing the collective shadow can take many forms: truth-telling, apologies, restitution, remembrance. These actions build more than trust. They build a future where we no longer pretend that darkness doesn't exist, but where we meet it, with wisdom, compassion, and fierce responsibility. When you heal yourself, you help heal the world. Because the world, after all, is only made of people, each carrying their own shadow, longing to be seen. The collective shadow healing begins with honesty. Creating a truly inclusive and just world doesn't begin with policies or slogans. It begins with truth, and truth, more often than not, is uncomfortable. Communities, schools, businesses, even entire nations carry shadows too. Shadows made of ignored histories, unspoken biases, and harmful norms long accepted as just the way things are. Facing this collective shadow isn't about assigning blame. It's about choosing courage over comfort. When we engage in honest dialogue about the parts of our past and present we'd rather forget, we crack open the door to healing. We begin to cleanse the wound, not hide it. As Carl Jung said, the courage with which we bear our darkness frees others from having to carry it for us. When we own our darkness, we make it lighter, for ourselves and for others. Lightening the load, together by confronting our own shadows, personal and collective, we begin to dismantle systems of silence. Every conversation we dare to have, every belief we're brave enough to question, helps create a more compassionate world. But this process is not easy. It demands effort, vulnerability, and the willingness to let go of comfort. Yet in that struggle lies transformation. We help carry the weight of change together. And in doing so, we slowly reshape the moral fabric of our communities. Because justice is not a finish line, it's a daily commitment. One grounded in self-awareness, humility, and the simple, radical act of listening deeply to ourselves and to one another. What does it mean to be whole? As we work toward building a kinder, more understanding world, one